Great Lakes, the largest body of fresh water on Earth, and as dangerous as any of the world's oceans. No mariner takes such waters lightly. Again and again, Superior has shown that even a tiny miscalculation can spell disaster. Today, the many shipwrecks near Isle Royale are protected by a U.S. national park. And now these shipwrecks have drawn the members of the Foundation for Ocean Research, led by naturalist and underwater filmmaker John Stoneman. Most of the wrecks have been explained, but one tragedy remains a mystery. The wreck of the Emperor. Stoneman knows that the Emperor, a mighty 160-meter-long ore carrier, ran aground on Canoe Rocks on June the 4th, 1948, when the lake was calm and visibility excellent. This expedition will seek to answer how such a catastrophe could happen.
The Great Lakes have been used for transportation and the movement of people and freight for centuries now, and it's estimated there's over 10,000 shipwrecks in the Great Lakes. A good percentage of them, of course, are in Lake Superior.
Diving 53 meters down in frigid Lake Superior will be especially hazardous. Dry suits are required to stave off the cold. The divers will flirt constantly with nitrogen narcosis. Before attempting the dive, Stoneman decides that a shallower dive to the wreck of the Chester Condon will familiarize the team with the special equipment they'll use. The dive to the Condon's broken bow section should be an ideal opportunity to prepare for the deeper, darker, colder dive to the Emperor. But the position of the wreck is a surprise. Amazingly, the bow section still hangs almost vertically from the rocks. The highest point is just below the surface, but other pieces are scattered down as far as 60 meters.
Storms and ice buildup have taken a toll throughout the 70-odd years that this vessel has been down. But there is almost no sign of life here in the frigid fresh water. The wreck is strangely sterile. It reminds me of the Indian legend that this lake never gives up its dead.
The work on the Condon is difficult. The divers must guard against disorientation induced by its strange, suspended position. Over the course of 3 dives, they systematically document the bow of the Chester Condon. But as the day wears on, the effort of working here exacts a higher and higher price. By day's end, one thing's clear. The exhausted divers will sleep well tonight as the boat rests in a sheltered bay on Isle Royale. The crew is up again at dawn, and the divers have big appetites. But that's not surprising, considering the extraordinary efforts required by the deep dives. The deck crew begins to ready the diving gear, while Stoneman calls the divers together. He's uneasy about this dive, concerned that the strange dangling wreck is tailor-made for trouble.
Oh, I find it extremely difficult to dive on this wreck because you seem to be going uphill or directly downhill all the time.
When you should be going the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's very strange. Inside, you think you're going down a ladder when you may actually be going up a ladder. And the combination of deep water and narcosis and this odd feeling that you see your bubbles are going in the wrong direction. It's a very strange experience. Also, it can be potentially quite a dangerous one.
Again, the divers plunge below the surface. Only Stoneman, who is blessed with an extremely low breathing rate, is confident enough to abandon the large air supply of the Twin 80 and use a single tank. It is a reasonable decision, provided nothing goes wrong. Stoneman realizes that his smaller, lighter tank has allowed him to move more efficiently. He is consuming less air. Confident, he turns his attention to the primary purpose of these dives, preparation for the much deeper dive on the Emperor. Accompanied by cinematographer Adam Ravitch, he leaves the other divers and follows the hull as it plunges into deeper water. He will need more decompression time, but there is no other way to gain this useful experience.
Entering the wreck at 40 meters, everything is as I had expected. But I am unprepared for the wash of disorientation inside this ghostly dark hulk. Unless I see my air bubbles, I cannot even tell which way is up.
Having explored 2 compartments, Stoneman decides to return. But now, he is unsure how to get out. Further above, the team becomes concerned that Stoneman and Ravitch have been in the wreck a long time. Support diver Paul Miles dives to search for them. Suddenly, Paul Miles' light shows Stoneman the way. Despite all his experience, the depth and the eerie darkness fooled him. The same effect could be deadly on the much deeper dive to the Emperor. Meanwhile, Lake Superior is living up to its reputation. The weather is changing fast. The rest of the team have already returned. Now, only Stoneman remains below. There is no way to speed up his decompression period without risk. The minutes tick by. But luck is on their side today. Stoneman is no sooner up than the storm hits. The Rosalie D pounds across the waves, headed for Isle Royale, with not a minute to spare. By nightfall, the storm has blown itself out, and the expedition members discuss the events of the day. Precise planning is essential. Tomorrow, they will dive to the Emperor, 53 meters down in the black waters. At dawn, the clouds are threatening and the weather forecast is bad. Stoneman cancels the dive rather than risk his team. While most of the crew take a break, Stoneman sets out with his camera to photograph the island wildlife while he waits for the weather to let up. The crew has been primed for action. To make up time, Stoneman schedules extra dives. But he's worried. Bad weather could spell disaster. and weather could be the least of their difficulties on the Emperor.
The Discovery Channel.
Dawn, and the weather proves to be perfect for the dive on the Emperor. Stoneman leads a conference on the deck, making sure everyone is still clear on their assignments. There's a shivering crackle of anticipation in the air. The divers descend toward the Emperor, leaving behind the bright world for the cold, dark waters below. Like the Condon, the bow portion of the Emperor lies in comparatively shallow water.
Considering that it was sunk in 1948, the Emperor appears to be in remarkably good condition. The awesome size of the bow section makes me wonder again how any ship so huge and so apparently invulnerable could have been broken and sunk in calm seas.
At first, the eerie majesty of the enormous wreck offers no clues to why the ship broke up. The bow shows little sign of damage. Even the anchor looks undisturbed. Stoneman works his way along the hull, searching for evidence of what happened. Near the midsection, his search pays off. Gaping holes have been punched in the vessel's steel skin, mute testimony to the durability of rocks and the fragility of ships. The effort to photographically record the bow section consumes the entire day. The deeper, more dangerous dive to the stern will have to wait. The day dawns fair again. Now Stoneman is familiar with the bow, but he knows almost nothing about the stern. To maximize their time on the wreck, the crew deploys an aquatic robot known affectionately as Cyclops, which is equipped with a video camera. When humans dive to 53 meters, each dive must be short, and each succeeding dive shorter still. The Aquabot will do the preliminary work for them. The images from Cyclops provide invaluable information.
Yeah, that's the name.
Each section of the ship is examined in detail.
Take it to the left and we'll see if we can get down the starboard companionway. Okay, descending.
Stoneman and his crew piece together a nearly complete picture with special emphasis on potential hazards like this crushed cabin.
Companionway. There's one good thing from this, at least we'll have a rough idea of what the stone looks like before diving on it, and at that depth I want to know as much as I can.
As the day ends, Cyclops displays a major advantage over human divers. Robots don't get the bends. Cyclops' pictures allow Stoneman to prepare detailed drawings. But so far, nothing explains how the shipwreck occurred in the first place. If they are to find answers, they must explore the Emperor very carefully.
Massive freighter that lays in approximately 53 meters. So that's about 170 feet. And it will be, as usual, extremely cold, dark, and we do not expect the visibility to be exceptional, but hopefully we will be able to see a lot of this very important shipwreck. Now, much of the starboard side of the living quarters at the stern has been heavily damaged, so we're going to work on the port side You'll see the smokestack is laying on the top, and the cabins on that side are accessible, though we have to be extremely careful because of the depth that we're working in. It's a big, big vessel, but I think the key factor here is caution has to be of prime importance.
Channel.
The divers descend like ghosts on a line. Stoneman first examines the galley. After 40 years of submersion, it appears almost totally unaffected. Incredibly, a stainless steel pot still retains its shine. The uncanny strangeness is everywhere. The huge mast reaches hopelessly toward the surface. Most of the Emperor's crew survived. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Kimball rescued 21 men, but the captain, the first mate, and 10 others perished. Further down, Stoneman examines the crew cabins. Not surprisingly, over the decades, the mattresses and bedding have disintegrated, replaced by small piles of silt. But then, hidden in the silt, Stoneman makes a discovery which bolsters his conclusion that there is a limited variety of life forms at this depth. A shoe. Remarkably, it's still well preserved after 40 years in this watery refrigerator. All too soon, the team swims past the toppled stack, beginning their ascent to the surface. They are somber. The signs of life have reminded them that men died on the Emperor. Their weighty thoughts are well matched by the weighty job of hauling themselves back into the boat. While the divers recover, there is time to re-examine the drawing and make minor corrections. There is time as well for Stoneman to analyze the remaining possibilities that might explain the tragic death of the Emperor.
Whether it be pig iron or stone,
Again and again over the next few days, the divers plunge into the icy black water. Little by little, they discover answers for almost every question, except the biggest one of all. Nowhere do they find any explanation of why the Emperor went down. It is almost as if the mystery deepens as they work their way down to 53 meters, almost 180 feet. Then, as he begins to ascend, unknown to Stoneman, the frame of his diving mask begins to collapse. This depth, it could spell disaster. He reaches the decompression station. The fractured mask must hold together for 40 minutes. But then, the glass smashes into Stoneman's eye. The frigid water floods in. Above, the exhausted divers cannot know of Stoneman's trouble. In the depths, Stoneman's first instinct is to surface, but he forces himself to stay down through decompression. Only when he approaches the surface does the crew realize that he's in trouble. Stoneman has been lucky. The lens did not damage the eye. It is a happy ending to a frightening accident.
Piece by piece, the puzzle of the Emperor is being brought to light. After studying the charts, I now think that a tiny navigational error caused the disaster. One final dive to the engine room should end the mystery.
Stoneman and Adam Ravitch dive directly to the engine room. Here they find no apparent damage, no sign that repairs were underway. It appears the Emperor went down due to faulty navigation. Then, as they prepare to leave, Stoneman makes a grisly discovery. The remains of a dead crew member. Stoneman and Ravitch discuss the situation. Both have been deeply moved. They decide against making another dive out of respect for the crew member in his final resting place. In the end, despite the terrible dangers of winds and wild waters, nothing is more deadly than human error.
Coming up next, meet the pirates of the South China Seas on Pirates. Then a luxury cruise ship meets with disaster on Spirit of Survival. Explore your world on the Discovery Channel. Next, meet the pirates